I said we're going to record a podcast here.
So we would just have to scoot back.
Okay, that sounds good.
In order to be able to, like, you gotta be in the screen though.
I don't know that I need to be.
Huh?
I said, I don't know. I have strayed away from every visual medium.
Have you?
Yeah, well,
Why?
oh heavens. I have a face for radio.
Right. That's all right. So this actually should work. It's a little weird, a little awkward,
Yeah, that's fine.
but all right. So what we'll do is we'll just have a little conversation about
Expertise.
Yeah, about expertise. And so see if you're positioned however you want to be positioned-ish.
I don't know.
You can be kind of like looking both ways and at each other at the whatever.
Sure. Is this what you want right here, like this?
Well, I mean, we can
You tell me.
kind of, are you comfortable?
Yeah, I'm comfortable.
Okay, all right. So
Mhm.
we were going to do this at with the beach in the background because so Kenny Embry is my guest on the podcast, and we were going to be talking about expertise and the nature of expertise.
Sure.
And we're both at a conference. Kenny is the president of the Southeast Case Research Association, which is the nerdiest thing that you'll hear all day until I tell you that I'm a past president of the Southeast Case Research Association.
That's right.
Which is that's just as nerdy. Okay, so and so we're at this hotel conference center. That's what you see in the background here. But I had this vision of that we're going to be, because the rooms oversee the Atlantic Ocean and there's the waves and all. And I had this great vision of that we're going to be there looking like internet millionaires.
I'll tell you what.
Who are try my 5-week course, and you can make as much money as I have, right?
All right.
So okay, at any rate, but it's a good place to be talking about, and I've been thinking about the nature of expertise.
Oh,
We're here at this, so viewers do not know. I can't imagine that any viewer knows that what Southeast Case Research Association means. These are academics, mostly PhDs, who love writing cases, and they like writing cases like they almost have a cult-like desire to write academic cases. It's really bizarre. I mean, wasn't it bizarre?
it is kind of bizarre. But one of the things that I would say about this conference, I mostly come for the people, not least of which you, Darren. I mean, this is. It's my tribe. These are the people who get.
Yeah, I like hanging out with them. I found it to just be like almost creepy how much they like writing academic cases. And I found that this is what my preferred academic writing is, writing cases, because it
Absolutely.
works in class. But I'm always astonished when we sit at these round tables, kind of like where we are, and somebody will present their case and then we'll give feedback.
Mhm.
And there might be an economist and a marketing guy and an accounting guy and I'm a communication guy
Yeah.
if we let Kenny in the room.
Yeah.
And so then we'll get feedback, and we'll get feedback from all kinds of multiple perspectives that we didn't think of, like
Right.
things that we weren't seeing. And that's kind of what led me to start thinking about expertise. And, I was just telling Kenny, I hadn't put out a podcast in the last 2 weeks. And that's just because I've been snowed under with committee meetings at work and things along those lines, and the conference coming up and all that. And I told him, I said, yeah, I just haven't found anything that I was really interested in. But I am, as I'm thinking about expertise, like I really have deep respect for these people that have significant expertise in their field. I don't want to be that accounting professor.
No, that's right. That's right.
But I'm really impressed with what he or she knows about their field.
Yeah.
So what is it about expertise that is just so like gripping? Like, let me frame it like this.
Okay.
I was in Lowe's, and I asked the kid that was working there, I had a little list. I said, excuse me, can you tell me where X is? No. Can you tell me where this is? No. Can you tell me where that is? No. Can you tell me where this is? No. Sir, this is my first week. I don't really know where anything is. That kid's not worth minimum wage.
Right.
Right. I mean, like
Right.
he's really not even worth minimum wage. And so that's on one end of the spectrum. And then you get people who know things and they can't even tell you why they know it, but they have deep knowledge and like just wow, respect that you can tie that to what we just talked. What is going on with expertise that is just so, I mean, I find it fascinating. Anywhere I find expertise, I find it fascinating.
Right.
It doesn't even have to be by field.
Right. Oh, I agree. I think one of the things that happens with what you're calling expertise, you and I are both geeks. And the thing about
No, I'm a nerd, not a geek. There's a difference.
well, then please elaborate. What's the difference?
Yeah, so geek is more on the techie side. And I know, you geek out on the podcasting stuff
do.
as well. I don't geek out on that. This is something that I need to do, but I'm a nerd where I'm closing in on 200 books this year. So
Wow.
I'm a nerd, but
Okay.
I'm not a geek.
Okay.
It's a different tribe.
Okay. Well, I would say that I would probably qualify for both tribes.
Okay,
then.
there you go.
And one of the things that I would say for nerds or geeks, it's an unnatural affinity or enthusiasm for a topic.
Yeah, that's right.
And one of the things that I would say about that is people who are excited about something usually inspire excitement in other people.
That's right.
And I think one of the things that happens with this idea of expertise is it's an admiration for people who basically devote themselves to a topic or to an idea, so much so that they can impress you with what they know. I know that one of the things that in my classes, I'm a moderate Star Trek fan.
Okay.
A casual Star Trek fan.
You are a geek.
But one of the things that I would say is the students who are really passionate about it, who could go into long diatribes about why Picard was the best captain. I'm drawn to that. I'm drawn to that debate.
That's wrong.
Well,
It's clearly Kirk.
no. I would even argue that in some ways it might even be Janeway, but I know that I'm alone in that.
You're very alone in that.
Very much alone.
You know, when my 5th child was born, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do to keep myself up while, I had the night shift with the kid.
Yeah.
So I watched all of Star Trek, the original series. Just
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I found something to do.
Yeah.
It was 24 with my second son, and it was, so or second child, first son. Yeah. So
I understand.
So I just found clever ways to keep myself awake. So anyway.
I think that expertise, I think that passion that these people have for this just kind of draw us in.
Yeah, and I think that when we're talking about expertise, as you were talking about passion, it made me think about it. There was this great line by Warren Bennis where he was talking about leaders have the ability, and I'm not quite quoting, I'm paraphrasing,
Right.
but to seduce their followers with passion. And not like, hey, I don't mean that. I mean, like to seduce, like to draw them into their dreams and their vision for the future, because they're just so passionate about whatever they're
Right.
doing. So I think there's something very deep about that. Okay, so shifting gears, there's a difference too between what an expert knows and what the average person knows. And the expert can't even necessarily tell why he knows that. It's
Right.
like implicit. It's just deep in there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about my dad. My dad is a retired physician. And one of the things that he will tell you is he especially when he's trying to diagnose an illness, he has been around the stuff so long that he just gets a sense for
That's right.
what you probably have. And the problem is all of us have become basically our own closet doctors because we go to Dr. Google to find out what our problem is. But my dad has basically been focusing on those problems so much that he can tell you, oh, no, Dr. Google is wrong on that. And this is what you,
awesome.
yeah. This is what you probably have. So he's passionate about it still, but he has so much knowledge. I mean, we could go even to Malcolm Gladwell in the 10,000 hours, which I would say my dad has more than satisfied the 10,000 hour rule. I think it's one of the things that draws us to those people is they have that number one passion and again, expertise, that knowledge. And I think Bennis is absolutely right. It is the seductive quality of these people. And I will say this as well. They get emotional and passionate about these topics
Mhm.
And I think it's the emotion that draws us in, but it's the logic and the obvious reasoning.
Yeah, they
behind
have to
it.
go together. And
Yes.
I get these kinds of things like end of the semester surveys like, man, this class was so hard, but Dr. Gerdes' passion was clear and evident, and it
Yeah.
made me want to do whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's the way it should be. So I get passionate about topics relating to leadership.
Yeah.
I'm imagining that you do with stuff relating to communication. He's, by the way, a communication.
Yes, I am.
So,
I am.
so is that, I mean, like, I'm not exactly sure how you become passionate about communication as a field. So
I can't imagine why you wouldn't. I guess
So that's a good answer.
the thing about communication, we've talked about this before. I think communication is largely just relationships.
Okay.
And how relationships actually get started, how they progress, and how they end. And to me, I don't know anything that's more interesting than that. I think one of the things about those relationships and how we get along,
Organizing and leading men to a vision of the future. That's what's more exciting. So
I'm glad you're passionate about that. One of the things that I'm much more interested in, and we've talked about this, I'm much more passionate about how I get along with my kids,
Mhm.
how I get along, quite frankly, with my God,
Mhm.
how I get along with the students in my room. And again, one of the very best lines, and I steal it from you every time, is that we don't teach subjects, we teach students.
Yeah, it's the best leadership lesson I ever learned.
It's a leadership lesson, but it's also a communication
It's a
lesson.
leadership lesson.
I'd say it's both. Because I think one of the things that I love, and I've quoted you many times on that. The thing about that is it tells you what you need to be teaching.
Mhm.
It starts directed
Okay.
content for you.
That's right.
And
Focuses.
it focuses you better than just about anything. So I love that. I love that. I'm passionate about it.
Yeah.
I want my students to understand it better.
So I'm going to credit my children's godparent. He was the English teacher across the hall when I was teaching history and government and econ at a little classical Christian school.
Yeah.
His name is Jeff Carlucci, and he taught. This was early on in my first semester teaching. That he said, "Well, you know, Darren, you're not teaching government. You're teaching people.
Right.
You're teaching students." And when I got that little shift,
Yeah.
everything changed, because I stopped trying to like make sure they got this content right. I started thinking about, hey, that's a human being made in God's image who has hopes and dreams and aspirations.
That's exactly
and how
right.
can I help them become what they're supposed? So it shifted everything about the way that I did it. It's
Right.
relational in
Yeah.
your language. And and that changed things. And then I started doing things differently. So I'd go, and so it wasn't hard for me to go to the soccer game or the basketball game or whatever, but I started showing up at the girls' tennis match, which was the most boring. Oh my gosh. It was the most boring athletic activity. Calling it an athletic activity
Oh, yeah.
is even a stretch.
Stretch, yeah.
It was more like, oh, and then they reach down and pick up the ball that they missed. And you're right. I mean, that's what it's like. And it was a really bizarre something, but I would walk on water with the girls' tennis team after I showed up to that activity, because they showed, and I wasn't like trying to like manipulate anything, but I just showed that I cared, and that care is returned.
Yeah.
And so good on Jeff for the expertise. He'd been teaching for 20 years by the time that we talked, and that expertise came through in, no, this is how you teach, not that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we go through, you and I both go through the tenure process. And one of the things that I've learned to tell we talked about this a couple of times before. If you want to be an effective instructor, fall in love with your students as soon as you can.
That's right.
And if you're doing this, well, number one, if you're doing it for the paycheck, sorry, I'm just going to have to apologize for that right up front. But if you're doing it for the love of the students, you will be satisfied.
Yeah, I think if your motives are right, if you can, and I say this in class about, and just in leadership kinds of stuff, you know, if you just care about your people, and you said love, I'm using the word care.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm trying not to be creepy, because it's not like, go love your people. So if you just care about your people, you naturally treat them in a particular way.
Yeah.
That's going to be different than if you're trying to use them so that they make you look good.
Yeah.
It's just a different place to be.
Yeah.
And I think that the passion, and again, I want to.
No, I get it.
But that passion to care about them, to help them become what they're supposed to be, becomes evident and bleeds through. Okay, let me shift gears and
Sure.
ask you something different. And that
Okay.
is so you're an expertise in communication. Is there a particular type of communication that
My dissertation was about online versus face-to-face communication.
Okay.
And I was specifically looking at gender differences in online versus face-to-face communication.
Okay, and so what did you learn?
Well, one of the theories that I started off with, and mine was a dissertation that basically disproved rather than proved anything.
Okay, that's fine.
And one of the things that I suspected was that men do it differently than women do. In other words, with almost all intimacy, and that was one of the variables that I was looking at. When you look at how men basically do, and this is going to sound terrible. Let me see if I can make this
Probably
sound.
will sound
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah. How do they develop intimate, non-sexual relationships?
Good, because I mean, we've already
Right.
been talking about love and passion.
I
and,
know,
you
I know.
Just
How
for
do
the audience, this is a G-rated show
Absolutely.
until Kenny starts cursing.
One of the things that I thought, and I still do think this,
Mhm.
is that guys do it by doing stuff together.
Okay.
That it's, and I always talk about my grandfather who fought in Patton's army.
Mhm.
He was one of the tank commanders and hated Patton. But one of the things that he really talked about for the rest of his life was that the closest guys to him were these guys that were in a foxhole with him.
That's right.
And one of the things, and I apologize because I've always wondered if I've constructed this memory or if this is a real memory. But I think as a child, I asked him, what did you guys talk about?
Mhm.
And I think what he said was nothing. And what that made sense to me,
No, I get it.
but how that made sense to me was these are people that develop a bond,
Mhm.
not based on self-disclosure.
Right.
But my wife and my daughter
Mhm.
do develop a bond through
So
self-disclosure.
I thought you said it was disproven.
Yeah, well, I guess what you would say is we could not reject the null
Okay, gotcha.
hypothesis.
Okay, so it
And so-
wasn't disproven, but I think
No.
you're right. I think you are absolutely right that guys, when they talk about things, I've heard it described like we're side by side as opposed to in front of each other.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Ironically, even
And right now we are side by
positions
side.
here, as we just set up for this was, yeah, I mean, so, but yeah, I mean, you're doing the thing together.
Yeah.
You're hunting, you're watching the game, you're whatever it is.
Yeah.
And maybe having a side conversation as opposed to, oh, tell me all about your day. Or what would, I mean, guys, I mean, if you did that, I think you're creepy.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
I know.
And if I don't have more of that toward my wife, like
Mhm.
more focus on her, then I'm dropping the ball in the way that I should be dealing with her, because I
Right.
should be like, it's like the classic thing where somebody has a baby and
Yeah.
they say, well, did you find out the details? Yeah, the baby is okay, mom's okay.
Yeah.
How many pounds? How many ounces?
That's
What color
it.
hair?
That's it.
Does she
That's
look
it.
like
That's it.
grandma? Did she? Well, I don't know. I mean, I didn't even think to ask those things, but
Right.
they're different in the way that they think. Okay, so we got a little bit down a rabbit trail here.
That's
So
fine.
so you have this expertise in communication. Now we
Uh-huh.
both have podcasts.
We do.
You know that because you're on mine.
Yeah.
They know that because they're watching it. Okay.
That's right.
So now, I like my expertise is leadership-ishy stuff, right? I mean,
That's right.
So I spent years just studying this because I'm fascinated with this phenomenon.
Sure.
Your podcast is not about being a good communicator,
No, it's not.
but tell them what your podcast is, and then I'll give you a follow-up.
No, sure. My podcast, it's called Balancing the Christian Life, but the overall idea about it is the first thing that I started off with was I wanted to give my son, and this is one of the things that was really important to me, was that I came up with an avatar.
Mhm.
In other words, who is my ideal audience? And my avatar was my 17-year-old son at that time, because I wanted to use language that made sense to him about what it means to be a Christian
Mhm.
on your own. But the other thing that I knew I wanted to talk about was what I call digital discipleship. In other words, what does it mean to use digital tools to spread Christianity and to bolster Christians up? So that's the overall
So you
idea.
used your expertise to create the avatar to actually impact or have an effect on what your topic is,
Yeah.
or your podcast is. But you're not an expert as a Christian, I mean, I don't think you're billing yourself as an expert, like not seminary trained or anything, but you're a deep disciple of Christ. And so you're not expert, but you really are like, for all intents and purposes, like this is part and parcel of who you are. It shows, it flows. It's
I hope
right. So what's the difference between your expertise there and your expertise in your classroom? How does that come out?
One of the things especially in the podcast and as a Christian, I think one of the things that I don't mind at all talking about is how I'm an idiot on things and how I just get things. I mean, I'll be happy to say that I'm the crash test dummy of Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
I will try things out and see what works and see what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of that is, and this is something that I got from another podcaster, Kerry Newhoff. He's an evangelical podcaster.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, his whole thing is Christian leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he does a great podcast. But in that space, one of the things that he talked about was that people often appreciate strength, but they relate to struggle. And what I think about with especially what I talk about when it comes to those Christian topics, the more I can divest myself of quote unquote expertise, probably the better off I am.
That's right. Because you're now interviewing them for whatever is it. But I would also argue that the way that you frame this, the way that you chose what you're going to be talking about, you are the expert. Because who's talking about digital discipleship? You're actually bringing in your strength from your communications background and layering that upon this who you are as a Christian and working that together. So I mean, there's weird different types of expertise or different layers of this stacked one on top of another in your scenario. So
I think one of the things that
I think that's what makes it work.
Maybe, I don't know. I try not to look too close at what makes the sausage. I just make it. And so I think one of the things that there is a value to me basically being relatable, but and I don't want to sound, I'm not trying to humble brag. There is a lot that I don't know, but
I would verify that.
That's exactly right. But by the same token, I'm the one who's choosing the topics.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the one who's choosing the guests.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the one who's asking the questions because I know where I want to end up. And there's a lot of, and the other thing that I do a lot with my podcast, I will have an hour and 20-minute interview that I will get down to 45 minutes to 50 minutes. So basically what I'm doing is I'm taking out what I call all the boring stuff. And it's not that it's bad stuff. It's just what happens in these answers is they'll answer the question and then they'll answer it again. And what I'll do is I'll take out the second answer because it's basically reinforcing the first.
But you said something really interesting, and that was that you choose the topics, you navigate that, and the expertise in there and steering it. Like I talk about pretty much anything leadership, but I know that I stay in my lane with leadership. I've strayed as far as something like a meta-analysis of what's going on in with COVID. But that's also because I have some expertise as an academic to be able to say, look, this is what it meant. But I generally stay in my lane. And so,
and by the way, that was a great episode. I love that episode.
I appreciate that. The idea of you choosing the topic I hadn't even thought of, but that reflects on your leadership or your expertise in this matter as well, in a really deep way, because you know where you're trying to go. And
one of the things that I've kind of figured out that I want to do with the podcast is I want to cover topics that I don't think are covered very well or covered at all. So for example, one of the things that I talked to, his name is Jeremy Dott, somebody that I've gotten really close to over the process of the podcast. He had two special needs children that both died. And I knew I wanted to talk to him about that. But one of the things that I knew was, here I am, and I go to church with Jeremy. By the way, I don't. I mean, he lives up in Kentucky. I live in Florida. Here I am going to church with Jeremy. He's had this horrific thing happen. And here's what I am, which is, what do I say? What do I say to Jeremy?
Well, you're a communications professor. You should figure that out.
Well, I should. And the way I figure that out is I ask Jeremy. Because I think one of the things that I don't know the answer.
Well, that's deep. I see the kung fu you just did there. That's pretty awesome.
And so I know it's
So you asked him, what does somebody say in that
Exactly.
circumstance?
exactly.
Wow,
because we
he
all
is
feel
an
like-
expert, ladies and gentlemen. That is something.
But the thing about it is he has an answer.
Yeah.
He has a better answer than I do.
Yeah.
I talked to somebody else. His name's Matt Bassford. Matt Bassford, bless his heart, recently diagnosed with ALS. He does not have long left. I don't know how much longer he has left, but he knows his days are numbered. And he came on my podcast not to talk about that, because at that point he was undiagnosed. He came to talk about his stillborn child. And again, I basically asked several of the same kinds of questions. He came at it from a very different perspective. I wasn't expecting that. But so, for example,
Yeah, what do you say?
with Jeremy said, don't expect people to know how to respond to you. You need to tell them, which makes sense to me. What Matt said was, don't talk.
Yeah, just, I'm here for you.
Yeah. And then I had a third guy, Keith Stoneheart. He said, one of the worst things that you can say.
I know what you're feeling. I
Well,
know what you're going through.
That's what Matt Bassford said.
Yeah.
He said, that's the worst thing. What Keith Stoneheart said was, don't make the offer, whatever you need, I'll be happy to help. He said, the problem with that in times of grief is that now you've just given him a job. How are you going to
Yeah,
help?
just go help them.
That's it.
I'm bringing you meals. Don't
That's
say
it.
anything about it.
That's it. Because I think one of the things, and I don't know how many times I've said that.
I had a friend that, I understand. I had a friend who just had a baby. They're snowed under. I was watching the kids while they were, off to the hospital because it happened sooner than they thought.
Right.
And I'm keeping them updated. Okay, so my wife's over there right now. I'll be bringing stuff over. And I was filling up a cart of groceries at their mother-in-law, or his mother-in-law was coming in on the plane. I was going to be picking her up, but I was filling up a cart of groceries. And I was giving him updates. He's like, where are you? I'm at Walmart. I'm filling up a cart of groceries for you. It's like, oh, well, do you want me to Venmo or whatever later? Don't insult me. This is me helping you. Let me help you.
Right.
And it was just a legitimate show of I care. And don't say, well, how can I help you?
Right.
No, I have specific things. I'm going to pick up your mother-in-law from the airport and get her to your house.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about her getting anywhere.
Yeah.
Having to, get out because you now have groceries and the kids are going to be sugared up with grandma.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that.
So you're fine.
Yeah.
You're fine. Just pay attention to your wife.
True experts recognize the limits of their knowledge.
That's good too.
And they have the humility to recognize when they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
I think that the problem with most, quite frankly, fake experts is they will take their hunch and try to enforce it.
Yeah.
I'm happy to say to Matt Bassford, to Keith Stoneheart, to Jeremy DeHutt, I'm an expert on this.
Yeah.
But I have no clue how to help you in these times.
Yeah. So there's two things there. One, you have like the Oprah effect where you look extra smart just by asking them to tell you the answers to the questions that's very clever, like this Jedi mind trick you're doing. And then the second thing was that true experts, they actually want you to try to disprove things.
Yeah.
Like, show me I'm wrong. Like, I no, seriously, if you can
Right.
disprove what this is, I've learned, I've grown, and they're happy about that. They're not like trying to be like, no, you can't prove me wrong.
Right.
If you see that arrogant spirit, that's not expertise. That's like something's gone off the rails.
Yeah.
There.
There's
That's my observation.
No, there's a big debate within Christianity about the role of grace.
Mhm.
Can you fall from grace or can you not fall from grace?
Mhm.
And I'll go ahead and tell you, I don't know where I land on that anymore.
Mhm.
Growing up, I had a very strong feeling about absolutely you can fall from grace. And I can give you a lot of examples where people have.
Mhm.
But by the same token, I think on the opposite side of that, what happens is that there are a bunch of Christians that if you were to ask them, are you going to heaven? Their answer is going to be, I don't have any earthly idea if I'm going to heaven.
Did you slip in that earthly intentionally?
Well, no.
You're a communications professor. I thought
That's
you
exactly
tried to
right.
work that in.
Every word is intentional. The thing about it is we got a lot of people that are what I call revolving door Christianity.
Mhm.
I'm out, I'm in, I'm out, I'm in, I'm out, I'm in.
Mhm.
And I don't think that's the what in Christianity, there's a confidence we need to have
Yeah.
because Jesus said we need to have it. Paul obviously has it,
Yeah.
but can people still fall from grace? I would say that they probably can because I've seen it done.
Mhm.
I mean, you can talk about Ananias and Sapphira. You can talk about a number of these people. I mean, you could talk about Judas. You could talk about a number of people who have made the confession,
Sure.
but then
And you know the counter argument, so I'm not going to go into the counter
no,
arguments.
yeah.
But, and I lean to the other side of that,
Yeah.
and so that's fine. But you know, it's a fascinating thing to bring up. But when you bring that up, the true expert, to my mind, is the one that comes to it with this humble spirit.
That's it.
And so I'm thinking about like Stott, the theologian, who's like, I mean, the guy was so humble. He's like, somebody's bringing him a cup of tea, and he's like whispering under his breath, "I'm not worthy." And the guy's thinking like, what's he talking about?
Yeah,
And he's thinking like, no, you don't understand. If I allow any arrogance at any point, that's the sharp edge of I'm trying to quote him, the sharp edge of the knife or sharp edge of the axe or something, whatever it is that allows other things to start. And he understood that. And so I look for humility in experts. I don't look for like arrogant, I know it all, I can show you, like, and in business, this is terrible, right?
I know.
Like the boss, I've talked to this guy that won, you know, he just got promoted to a high level something. And it's like, well, you know, now what do you need to do? And you need to make sure everybody thinks that you know all the answers. It's like, yeah, that's what I need to do. I'm like, you know, I was joking, right? don't do that. We know you don't know all the answers. So yeah, but I mean, that's the way people think. But when I see deep humility,
that's it.
They've studied it. They know what they're talking about. They've been at it. They put in the time. In martial arts, we call it time on the mat. Like you can't, if you're in judo, for example,
Right.
You can't do what a black belt in judo would do unless you have enough time on the mat.
Right.
Right. You have to do that. But then at that point, you have to be you have to have humility. And what's fascinating about that, most black belts I know are some of the nicest people that you'll ever meet. They're not the chip on the shoulder guy that's like, what, you're looking at me? I'm like, huh? What? They're not that person. They're actually really nice guys. And they're a certain kind of confidence, a quiet confidence that doesn't come from having to prove themselves, because they know they can handle it.
Right. You know, in academia, I mean, we get these highfalutin degrees. And one of the things that I'm sure this happened to you, it happened to me, because by the time I got to my dissertation, I was looking at such a small question about such a small number of people that had larger ramifications. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I recognized almost immediately, there is so much I don't know. There is so much I don't know.
Yeah.
I can tell you basically in 2007, what this group of people said about this thing.
Yeah.
Is it still true? As an academic, I have to admit, I have no idea.
Yeah. No, we have some deepness, but you know, and we have to stay in our lane with what we are experts about. Right. Like, you pull up the hood of my car, I'm an idiot. Yeah. Yes. You know, I can talk to you all day long about this academic stuff. Let me add one more thing about expertise and making mistakes. Yeah. I think there has to be a process. It's kind of like the mat work where you just have to screw up along the way in order to and just take your licks along the way until you get to a place where you actually are able to do what you need to do. Yeah. I think one of the things that I take almost every idea about Christianity or anything else like that and basically relate it back to family. And let me ask you this: you got 6 kids. Are you an expert dad? I'm an expert in dad jokes, and I have a dad jokes champ shirt to prove it. Not expert dad jokes.
Well, the thing about it is,
by the way, I got to tell you my daughter's joke.
Go ahead.
So my daughter's in my room, and she's talking to my wife, and she looks at my son and says, "Can you believe that they're still together after all the crap they've been through?" And he looks at her and says, Who? Your butt cheeks. I'm like, you get to wear my dad jokes champ shirt. Okay, that was a side that was completely
I
free. Has
understand.
nothing to do with what we're talking
I
about,
get
but
that.
that was funny.
That
And
is
just
funny.
out of nowhere, she
Yeah.
just came. Okay, anyway, yeah, but no, I'm not an expert at that. I'm trying. I'm very focused. It's kind of like somewhat analogous to Christianity, right?
Absolutely.
Like we're both committed believers. We're trying to follow hard after Christ and be that which we should be as he wants us to grow in his image, right?
Right.
So I'm not an expert in, like, I don't have a seminary degree or anything along those lines. Just same thing. As a dad, I'm trying. I make mistakes, but you learn over time as you make these mistakes. Like, oh, that didn't work.
That's right.
Yeah.
But Darren, if you're not, who is?
Right.
I mean, the fact of the matter is, you could make a really good case that you are an expert
I
dad.
should write a book.
Well, you can
Or
write a book.
outsource the book and then put my
That's
name on it.
exactly right. Again, I understand. I got
Outsource it to my children as a homeschool project.
There you go. There you go. The thing about it is, though, you have instant credibility because of your experience.
All right. So I was going to talk that was going to be my last topic, but credibility comes up now.
Absolutely.
Because experts have credibility for different reasons. Like they have a title, they have held a particular job, they actually know stuff. That's a good one. Right. There's all kinds of ways that you can have credibility. You wrote a book, even if the book doesn't make any sense.
That's right.
Like, oh, it's weird.
Or if it doesn't sell.
Even if it doesn't sell.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so esoteric, he must be smart.
That's exactly right. No, expertise is basically made up of two components. One of them is trustworthiness, or that idea of character. In other words, if somebody's not telling you the truth and you can't trust them to tell the truth, they can have the knowledge, but they're not an expert to you. Because, if you have a doctor that lies to you all the time, I'm not going to him or her or whoever. It's both credibility. Credibility is made up of both character and also this idea of expertise, or that you're an expert in a subject. And really, one of the things that you could say, and I do say this, it's usually just knowing more than the person that's before you, and that's usually expert enough.
And that is good enough in general. Like if you're a 3 and somebody's a 2 on a 10-point scale, you can help them. Right. You don't have to be Wayne Gretzky in order to coach that little league, Pee-wee league hockey. Right. If you're good enough. But when I'm thinking about deep expertise, I have this new appreciation for it. I don't mean just because of the conference. I just mean I have an appreciation for, like, when I see somebody, I can't tell you how many times I'm just like, you have one job, you're customer service, or you're this, or you're bringing out fries or what. Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate when somebody does excellence, because I seem to see it so rarely.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. The other thing that I would say about it is, people who are going after something, especially if they have a level of maturity, aren't jealous of people who are better than them.
There's something.
They just,
you're just bringing that up because I was talking about your 20,000 podcast episodes, right? And what did I tell you? And so in this, when I saw Kenny, so I see you once a year at this conference. We talk other times as well, and you've been on the show. But I said, hey, you just hit the 20,000 podcast bar. Congratulations. I can't say I wasn't jealous, but it wasn't the kind of jealousy where I want to tear you down. I just want to be like, hey, how'd you do that? I want to do that too.
That's exactly right.
So, but they're not jealous in the way like, well, I don't want him to succeed. No, they're not like that. No. And I think that's a pretty legit view of true experts as well. They're not moved by that kind of thing.
Well, that's exactly right. And they can honestly celebrate other people's successes. There's a guy, his name's Hal Hammonds. He has another podcast. It's called Citizen of Heaven. He's been doing it longer and doesn't have as many. But I tell you what, for what he does, I think it is so good. I would say the same about you, Darren. You do really good stuff. Why it's not gaining more traction, I don't know. And I would be willing to.
I'm a well-kept hidden secret.
And I will make this offer to you. I'll make this offer to a lot of people, especially, but no, not especially, only to people I admire. If there's something I can do to help you, please let me be a part of that.
Yeah.
Because I admire what you're doing.
Mhm.
And I think one of the things that I would say there are people who I think have basically scammed into it.
Yeah.
I don't want to help them.
Yeah.
I don't admire them.
There's a certain subset in podcast land that's like, I don't like, it's funny because like you and I have this expertise in our fields that we kind of bring into a podcast. And then there are a bunch of podcasters that they understand all the techie stuff, but they're empty suits.
Yeah.
And they have nothing really to say.
All right.
And it's just a different place. Like we're just, like, I describe this as like bringing my classroom out into the world.
Yeah.
Right. The same kind of stuff that we talk about in class is the kind of stuff that we talk about there. So yeah, it's just a different thing. Anyway, Kenny, we're about at time. I just want to thank you for kicking this around with me. I appreciate having deep thoughts or thinking through things. I mean, no, seriously, and it's great. And I always close, as you know, with the quotation for Contemplation. So this is a quote from Daniel Kahneman. Kahneman is I'm sure you know who he is. I'm just more for the people that are watching.
Great book.
Thinking Fast and Slow was his book. He's a Nobel Prize winning economist. And he's got some deep background in psychology and economics. And he wrote, this is a quote of his: "True intuitive experience is learned from prolonged experience with good feedback on mistakes." I thought, wow, that's right. You have to make the mistakes. You have to get the feedback, because if you make mistakes, you didn't learn anything necessarily until you get feedback. And even pain is good feedback. It's telling you, stop doing that stupid thing. Right. Don't do that again. That hurt.
Yeah.
Right. So and you have to get that experience and that. I said this at one of our sessions today, but it's kind of like this expertise is kind of like leadership or wisdom or love. It has to be developed over time. It can't be instantly add water and you have it. It doesn't work like that. And so when I see it, I see, wow, there's something there. There's something deep. There's something that they've been drilling down. But then we saw these other characteristics like this humility, or like they're not offended if you're doing successfully, and I'm not. It's those kinds of additional peripheral concepts around expertise that really help us kind of make like a FBI profile of what is an expert. And that's what I was trying to get to. And thank you for coming on. I'll give you the last word if you have anything else to see. Let's see just how expert you are.
Well, here's the only expertise I would say. You got a great podcast. You've been a good friend. You're somebody that I truly admire. I really enjoy spending time with you.
This one's going to cost me. Wow. How much was this?
I don't need any money. I just need your friendship, and that's all I really need. So, Darren, thank you as always. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
All righty, man.
All right. So
that's done.
That works. We'll see how well this microphone will work with that.
Okay, we'll see.
If nothing else, you got built some dendrites.
There you go.
Right.